and welcome along to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nicol.
And today on the show, we are once again joined by Linda Forsyth from Venture Property Management. And today on the show, we are going to be talking about some of those awkward and funny stories Linda has had to deal with as part of her property management career. And the whole idea around this is this. Property management is essentially a people business. You're not really managing the property, but you're managing the people within the property. And how do you deal with some of those awkward situations that sometimes happen because you are dealing with people? Isn't that right, Linda?
Yes, yeah. Dealing with people is the best part of the job, to be honest. People are just so...
It's the only thing that keeps us sane.
There's so many different people from so many different walks of life, and they do some crazy things sometimes, and certainly I have some good work stories.
In the confines of their home.
Yes.
Like Ed does.
So, Linda, walk us through. I want to hear about the dead cat because I wouldn't let you tell me about it before we hit record. So tell us about the dead cat story.
Okay, so it was a number of years ago, and I had a house in Hornby that I was taking a little bit longer than usual to rent out, and it was a very, very hot summer's day, and I get to this property, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, sun streaming into the yard, and here's this bloated dead cat that had run across the road. It had been hit by a car, and of course this house I was struggling to get a tenant for, and I had a bunch of people coming, and I'm just looking at this dead cat. And I'm thinking, what do I do with this? So lucky we'd just been camping, and I had the camping shovel in the backyard.
You had a shovel in the back of your car. That's the story anyway.
And so here I am, stinking hot, 30 degrees, summer day in Canterbury, digging a hole and sticking this cat in it. It was disgusting.
Do you know what? It's amazing because we just came here in your car, Linda, and there were some amazing things in there that I never would have expected.
Things?
Well, there was a step ladder because you've got to be able to reach up and check the smoke alarms.
Yes.
There was a staple gun because you've got to put up the signs, and it was just interesting things that obviously make sense, but I wouldn't have thought, of course, that'll be in Linda's car.
Well, lucky this day I had the shovel.
Hey, and tell us another one. What else you got for us?
One of my more interesting stories is we do have a person that is currently living with a doll as his partner,
So just to clarify, this is a girlfriend doll.
Girlfriend doll.
Sometimes,
blow up. So sometimes she's watching television.
You know the type, Ed.
You're going along, and sometimes you go into the house, and sometimes she's watching TV, sometimes she's having a snooze. He's very happy with his girlfriend, and
I would be too. There'd be less talk back.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if you haven't told one of the property managers that she's there, we just recently had a situation where one of our property managers went in and started having a conversation, and when she didn't talk back, he got a little bit flustered.
Look, and we use this point not to kink shame, more just to point out that actually, this is a very unique situation that if I were the landlord and I were dealing with this myself, I don't know that I'd be able to do it with a straight face. And Linda and her team are so professional and respectful of this person's decision to live with a doll, and that they can manage this process without it making anyone feel uncomfortable, and that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I imagine they're a great tenant.
They're a lovely person and a fantastic tenant. So
yeah,
and that's what actually matters. And that comes back to the previous episode we did when talking about taking the emotion out of it, because this person's a great tenant, perfect, got the absolute right to do whatever they want within the home.
Absolutely, their
and
business.
That's great.
Yes.
Talk to us about the next one.
The weed in the garage. I think that unfortunately some people do decide that we haven't really lived much of a life.
So weeds, you're not talking about the like a little bit of stinging nettle in there?
No. So
different type of grass.
Marijuana, yeah. And there was one particular tenant where I went into the garage, and the garage was a man cave. It had the pool tables and bits and pieces, and it just smelled like weed. And I said, that's a very strong weed smell. She goes, oh, no, that's just the incense that I've just bought.
Oh, that old chestnut.
The
incense, the weed-smelling incense.
Yeah.
And
so,
Linda, this just to veer off track a little bit, with the potential of marijuana becoming legal, how's that going to impact, if you've read into it, how's that going to impact landlords? Are you allowed to stop your tenants from doing it, or will they be allowed to have marijuana in the garage?
They can't smoke inside the property, so it wouldn't actually matter whether it was legal or not legal. They wouldn't be able to do it inside the property.
Yeah. So was this a case of someone smoking it or growing it?
Smoking it.
Okay. But there are other instances that I know of tenants that have large amounts of cannabis growing in their house, and the last thing you need as a landlord is the police showing up and knocking down the garage door and taking your tenant to court.
And that's part of the routine checks that we do, is making sure that if there's sheds in the back, you're looking to see what's in the sheds.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting thing. I mean, when meth was a real concern for a lot of people, and obviously it still is, but maybe to a lesser of extent now that the lines have changed in terms of what you need to do with different levels of use within the house. Doing those regular checks really helps spot out if something seems amiss, and that's probably your best line of defence, having a property manager walk around, because they will spot things that signal that someone's using drugs or growing drugs or something like that, or manufacturing in the house.
You know, the benefit in the case of the person growing it is they probably never missed a rent payment in that case.
And they're paying cash.
Now, also, talk to us about, I realise that obviously being a property manager is not all glamorous, and sometimes there's a bit of grime to clean up.
Just out of curiosity, what part of the dead cat story was glamorous?
Linda, talk to us about some of the things that you've had to clean up.
Okay, so unfortunately, this year alone, we've had 2 instances where we've had one particular house that was as is, whereas the investor was doing it up, and when they were cleaning the pipes, they blew everything back up the pipes. But of course, nobody was using the toilet for a number of weeks. So when we went to show people through the property, lifted the toilet lid, and there was
I'm just going crazy.
there was a terrible mess that honestly
that had been left there.
That had been left there, and so we had to
for several weeks.
Yeah, had to get that cleaned up. And then just recently, we had a tenant who went back to America because of COVID, and it was a beautiful new apartment that somebody had just done exactly the same thing with, and we had to clean that up.
It is amazing what property managers are willing to do to get the job done. I remember one of the team running out the door with some cleaning supplies once, because the tenancy had come to an end and they were going to go clean the shower. It was something like that. And I remember saying to the member of the team, well, isn't that the tenant's responsibility? And they said, well, according to tenancy law, they only have to leave it reasonably clean and tidy. Now, that may not be or isn't the standard that Venture would hold itself to when letting out a property for a new tenant, for instance. And so the property managers will go to great lengths to make sure that the properties are appropriately presented.
Absolutely. And if it's a matter of half an hour's work or an hour's work, then yes, they just get stuck in and get it done.
Wow, that's amazing.
Tell us one more before we wrap up, or 2 more.
We do have tenants that try and pull the wool over our eyes, and so we had this particular tenant who rang and said that I had somebody try and break into my property last night. My garage door has been smashed, my external side door, and when our property manager went along, he thought there was just something a little bit strange about it, and so he rang the glass repair person and just said, can you tell us a little bit more about this invoice, this $800 invoice that he was wanting the owner to pay. And turned out that the tenant had been a little bit drunk, come home from the pub, couldn't get in, picked up a brick, smashed the window, and then thought that our owner should probably cover that cost.
That's okay. I get that. Wow.
Yeah.
And so how did the glazier know that? Just in the conversation?
He told him in the conversation. And so the way we dealt with that is our property manager sent an email just saying, we've been speaking with the glazier, this is what we've been told, and here's the bill. And he paid that very quickly.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
Was probably much needed. And do you have another one for us?
Well, just this weekend past, I get a phone call from one of the staff saying there's a pigeon stuck in the spouting at this house, and do we do something about? Is that our job to do something about that? And I said, well, possibly we should just ring maybe the bird people.
Yes.
So it's about that. Sometimes tenants just don't know which way to go, who to talk to, who it's appropriate to talk to, and we probably think a little bit more outside of the square as to who can get there and help the quickest.
Yes, and amazingly enough, are probably experienced in burying cats and dislodging pigeons, etc. And it's one of those things that Ed and I follow one of the property investors forums. And it just amazes me the number of questions that you see from DIY landlords. And I just think the only answer appropriate for these people is get a property manager, because, like, seriously, property management costs you like $35 a week. If you can't afford to pay a property manager, don't get into property investment. It's not right for you, because the hassle that goes with managing these kind of things yourself will put you off investing in property, and it will stop you actually growing a portfolio and being able to do this in a professional way. Pass the responsibility of burying birds and talking to dolls to Linda and the team, because it's much, much easier.
I almost feel bad though, Linda, that you pay your property manager probably $2,000 a year, roughly. If it's $500 a week and you're paying them 6.95 plus GST, it's around that $2,000 a year mark. And it almost feel like it's not enough for some of these
Linda
things.
agrees.
Some of these things that you have to do. And of course, you're managing 100 properties per property manager, roughly, sometimes a bit more than that. And it is a significant amount of work for one person to go through and undertake, and not always glamorous.
It's a labour of love, and all the ladies and gentlemen in the office, one gentleman, just do it without taking it on the. They just take it on the chin. They turn up to work every day, and I don't know how the hell they do it.
Fantastic. Let's wrap it up there. But please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It really does help us get the message out to more people. And hey, if you want to learn more about property with Andrew and I, come along to our in-person Property Academy podcast live recordings. These are happening in Christchurch, Wellington, and Auckland from the 20th to the 22nd of October. Now, I'm going to drop a link to where you can find that and register in the show notes. So tap or swipe over the cover art. I'm going to drop a link in there. Or just go to opespartners.co.nz/pod event. Thanks for listening to the Property Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ed McKnight.
And I'm Andrew Nichol.
And we're going to be back again tomorrow with even more daily strategies, tactics and insights to help you get the most out of the New Zealand property market. Until next time.